Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adrenal Fatigue webinar. This is Jason Steves. We are getting set up and ready to go. Please share any questions you have. If you have questions right off the bat, if you don't, that's fine. You can also make comments in the chat and share any thoughts or testimonies you have. We're going to get started in just a moment. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Steve Steves here, board certified clinical nutritionist and board certified naturopathic doctor.
Turn our camera on.
We are here, webinar on adrenal health, adrenal fatigue, the 21st century stress syndrome. You know, I was seeing adrenal fatigue problems back in the 1990s. They had a label for it, chronic fatigue syndrome, and a lot of precipitating factors we find associated with it. We're going to cover as many as we can today, and you may have questions. associated with those adrenal fatigue issues that you have, or fatigue issues. The adrenal glands are always involved in some form or fashion because there are stress responding glands. We want to learn about how to protect them and how to nourish them. And we can live a full, long life and handle stress in a proper perspective, that we don't get anxious in stressful situations, that we stay calm and focused. And this God wants us for us. I know that he says that in Philippians 4, in verse 4-6. Beloved, be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for nothing. But in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your heart and mind. Your heart is affected by the hormones that are triggered and the neurotransmitters that are even activated as well when you are in stress. So excited to share this. Let's go and walk through these next few slides, asking questions. The first one being, why are so many Americans tired? And what can we do about it?
Oh, that one's the general question. Yeah, there you go.
So do you wake feeling energetic and positive for the day? Do you sleep 7 to 8 hours with little or no interruption in your sleep? Do you wake feeling energized and refreshed? Do your thoughts tend towards fear and negativity that steal away your strength and motivation? Do you feel strong and have stamina and endurance throughout your entire day? Do you feel energized or fatigued after you exercise? And do you crash at the end of a workday with nothing left?
So if you could take some time and share a little bit about the challenges that you have in the chat with everyone. Share a bit about, what are your main issues? Are your issues regarding sleep, and when you wake up, you feel horrible? Is it your issues during the day and you don't have focus, or your energy is low? Share with us. I know for me, a lot of the issues that I deal with are related to fatigue during the day and focus. A lot of that is the challenges that I face, and we all are unique and have different types of challenges. So type that into the chat, share what your challenges are, so everybody can you guys can interact, and we can all see what we're doing. Oh, chat is disabled. We got to enable that chat.
Hang on, chatters. We are enabling you to talk to us, ask your questions.
All right, that should have done it. Nope.
Now we're ready for you. We think that chat room should be working. So come on board and let's talk about adrenal fatigue or adrenal burnout.
There we go. Yep. So share in the chat. Sorry about that, guys. Share in the chat about your challenges, and it's open up now to be able to share.
All right. So we're going to cover things such as, what are the adrenal glands and what do they actually do? And what contributes to adrenal fatigue, or also known as adrenal burnout? What can you do to combat the negative effects of adrenal fatigue, or the negative effects of stress that contribute towards adrenal fatigue? And then learn key takeaway points that allow to revitalize with greater strength, energy, and calm in stressful situations. So the goal today is to teach how to restore and maintain optimal adrenal function to regain vitality, energy, and calm in the midst of the storms of life. Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke
is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. Our desire is to teach you, as Jesus taught us, some of these principles about how to deal with stress, how to overcome the effects of stress. Stress really was what put me down. I got sick with the flu last year. I let myself push too hard and didn't do the 7 principles in balance that we're going to talk about, 7 principles of health and healing. So really encourage you that you can overcome whatever stressors you're going through and do it through a proper perspective. So how do the adrenal glands work? For that. The adrenal medulla is the inside portion of the gland. It produces adrenaline, and we use a lot of that. You can get a stimulation of adrenaline while you're driving in traffic. You can get that if someone's coming after you, but it wasn't meant to be used all the time as a continual stress that we often experience. But the adrenal cortex, the outer portion of the gland, produces other hormones. The most important ones you probably heard about are cortisol and DHEA. These create the short and long-term stress hormone responses. Cortisol helps in excess will suppress the immune system and break down tissues, and has basically a catabolic effect. It breaks down large molecules and smaller ones to be released as energy when you're in a stressful situation. Oftentimes people they are chronically in a fasting mode because they're trying to lose weight. They'll often catabolically waste away lean tissue while they do that, good tissue that they need, but they need proteins to make neurotransmitters and hormones and fatty acids, and they're not getting those essentials when they're over fasting. So we have to guard against that. These effects are balanced out by DHEA, which has the opposite effect that cortisol does. Both produced in the adrenal glands activate the DHEA activates the immune system and helps to build up the tissues. So why don't zebras get ulcers? It's actually a book. And the reason for this is associated with the levels of cortisol. Let's talk about how individuals have the negative symptoms of stress. Like many people and animals do not show negative symptomatic signs of stress because they can handle stress like zebras do in a proper perspective. There's always a lion out there ready to pounce on them, and they can see it, but they know it only happens in occasional durations, and then they just get up and run, and then they stop running and go back to grazing and drinking again. So normal levels of cortisol and normal DHEA, the adrenal gland is functioning properly, and you can measure these with salivary hormone testing. So that's what we want to achieve. When the cortisol elevates and the DHEA is in the normal range, this is a normal short-term response to stress. This is what zebras experience.
Okay, so that's like a scary situation or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So we don't elevate the cortisol. The body deals with the stress, and then we get out of that stress rapidly, and we're fine. When we're in stress excessively, things such as high blood pressure occur, increased heart rate. Stress will actually stimulate more mental alertness, which helps protect us. And unfortunately, in excess can cause anxiety and increasing the energy supply.
So basically what this is showing is the physiological changes that happen when we get some sort of stress response, when we're scared or something like that. Blood pressure, increased heart rate, improved mental alertness. The way I always shared it with clients was that God created our bodies in such a way to get us safe or help us to get, like if someone that we care about is in danger, go get them safe. Puts all the blood to our brain and our arms and legs so that we can do that job. And the blood actually stops flowing into our digestive system and all those areas.
We talked a little bit about that during the digestive teaching and how it inhibits digestion, and it takes that energy for fight or flight.
So when people are in that state, maybe they feel good, right? maybe I think I would say I'm getting into that more often than I need to as well. And maybe there are things in our life that push us into that state, maybe things that stimulate us, right? A common, I like to call it, it's a socially accepted drug of caffeine. But yeah, there's a lot of things that kind of push us into that will really drive that into a consistently high stress state throughout the day and then day after day. And so that's, I think, what you were talking about in regard to,
and you
like,
know what that is that people don't even realize? It's that cell phone that they have all those notifications on. You're constantly getting notified of this and that on your cell phone. And I just turn notifications off. When I want to know about something, I'm going to look for it. So adrenal exhaustion. Let's look at the definition of this. When you get up and go, it's just got up and went. Here's an example of adrenal exhaustion. You see this poor polar bear on his face just collapsed. Back in the 1990s, when I saw so many chronic fatigue individuals coming into our office, we saw the relationship with epigenetics. That was learned in the 2003 Genome Project, and that was your environment. And what's your environment look like? The outside environment that influenced your genetic response. Now, Hans Selye actually came up with this term called the GAS syndrome, the General Adaptation Syndrome, for how your body responds to stress. But when it gets into a low cortisol level and low DHEA, as you see the polar bear here, this results in the adrenal gland being in an exhausted state, and it just can't make enough cortisol or DHEA. And by this time, patients are usually severely fatigued. So we know we can combat that, we can come back from that, but we've got to get away from our exhaustion source, our overstimulation source. One of those that people are not aware of today is the most commonly overlooked sources of stress and resistance is adrenal fatigue, is chronic immune burden or recurring infections. Adrenal fatigue is often precipitated by recurring bouts of bronchitis, pneumonia, asthma, sinusitis, or other types of immunocompromised states. The more severe and continuous the affliction on the immune system, the greater the burden on adrenal function.
Yeah, back to that, if you don't mind, Steve. So that immune burden and recurring infections, right? That's something I talk with practitioners regularly about. We talk about it a lot. That's something that it's important to know. What is an immune burden, right? And an immune burden is something that our immune system is not able to properly, deal with. Our immune system's designed to recognize and to deal with things that are foreign invaders, things that are not self. So these are proteins from different things in our environment and different chemicals in our environment, things that our body should be kind of, you could say, detoxifying or getting rid of. And so our immune system is primarily responsible for recognizing that and doing that. Now, it's burdened when the immune system is not able to do that healthfully. And it's not able to do that in a calm state. It becomes excessively reactive. And so it creates more inflammation and thus infection. If we have excessive inflammation, our body's not properly getting rid of it, our body tends to have this kind of infection that happens. And so that's kind of a chronic immune burden that we're dealing with that we need to address in regard to, getting our adrenal and our energy health, back in order. So there's different ways that we do that. We'll talk a bit about that later on the show. But if you have questions, remember, we've got a Q&A section. If you have questions about any of this throughout, and we'll address those questions when we get to the question and answer time. But also share in the chat as well anything that you have to share about these points. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, and a testimony that you may have regarding dealing with adrenal stress.
Oh,
now,
there you go.
I haven't done this anytime recently, but we know people that do that. And can you imagine how someone who does this professionally could maintain a sense of calm, even though their hearts are rapid at so many beats per minute. But we have to guard against the stressors. I just don't go down to the swamp, and that keeps me away from the alligators. There's a way that you can test through salivary cortisol readings, adrenal stress index tests. That we do this from a company called Diagnostics, and they do a great job evaluating how your body's production of the hormones occurs. And we have an adrenal questionnaire, a quick response questionnaire, and I think we're going to figure out a way to get that on the website. It would help people to, I know we've got some questions on there, but we'll make that available, help people understand how this curve works for cortisol. We typically produce a good amount of cortisol in the morning, and it's supposed to go down by the end of the day and maintain high energy levels. Our best time for working out is in the morning. And these curves will vary based on individuals, and you'll see them improve when we utilize certain lifestyle supportive mechanisms, specifically adaptogens from herbs that we use. And they've been around for years. In fact, the first herb I found out about as a human was an adaptogen herb. And I'll share that with you when we get to that point. But here's what Americans are typically doing in the world. They're doing is self-medicating with having stimulants in the morning, drug or alcohol abuse in the evening time to help calm them down. Tobacco use is a stimulation during the daytime. Abnormal eating patterns. And some people, when they're stressed, will eat more, or when they've let their blood sugar go for too long and their adrenaline response isn't working. And so then they eat copious amounts of sugar. Or cravings for salt is another indication of adrenal fatigue, because the adrenal glands make aldosterone to help balance the sodium in the body. Another way that we respond to